I want to talk about the physical reaction that this movie has on people, the effect it has on people. I described it to someone as like having a 2-hour-long panic attack. And I was telling you that when the movie was over last night, I could hear the audience audibly like let out their breath. Yeah. When you're writing a script like this, the dialogue's great and the story's fantastic, but do you know beat for beat the physical effect that it's going to have on someone?
Yeah, I mean, I think you write like this thriller, you know what I mean? When you hear when I hear panic attack, I'm like, oh no, that sounds scary. But when it's tied to like a thriller and you don't know what's going to happen with this guy's life, especially the way Sandler plays it, that there's what you do is you write these kind of tense moments, and you know that his life is riding on these kind of crazy bets. But you have humor. So like the humor actually acts as like a little kind of needle to poke and let some air out every once in a while, and that's the beauty of having Sandler.
Yeah. It was funny because it's almost like in a horror movie where like when you jump and then after you're scared, your initial reaction is to laugh. There were moments in that where I was like almost like screaming at this guy going, oh my God, but there was just this weird, like, it made me laugh for some reason in a weird, and I don't know why. There's so many reactions. I know you guys have been working on this over the course of a decade, while also doing other projects as well. What's the biggest change this film underwent over the course of 10 years?
It's weird because it has been such an organic process, and it's slowly changed. I guess I don't know the biggest change.
Well, the basketball player.
Yeah, the basketball player
3 times. Yeah.
Oh, so I was going to ask that question too. I'll jump to it now. Was there if Kevin Garnett had said no? Was there a backup? No, there
was.
We would have found somebody else, but I can't imagine another player.
The backup started with Amari Stoudemire. Then briefly we were discussing things with Kobe. That never really kind of worked, and it was also kind of like the themes of the movie didn't kind of line up with Kobe. Then we found out he didn't want to even act; he only wanted to direct. And then we were with Joel Embiid for a long time, and then it landed with Kevin Garnett. And if it didn't work out with Kevin, there was a couple of other recently retired players that would have potentially worked, but no one would have played it the way Kevin.
But how
passion
would Kobe
is insane.
have worked? Because he's able to drive to Philly.
Yeah, so we found
a
East
stretch.
Coast
Yeah.
games, and we were going to center it around the 60-point Garden game that he had.
It was cool when it relied around a playoff game because you had the same characters in the games to go off of. We would have with Kobe, it probably would have been a regular season stretch on the East Coast.
Okay, got it. Because they would have had to, obviously the player is dependent upon, with the stretch of games.
And it's interesting because we wanted it to be based around the reality of that moment, because it was an interesting restriction. All of these things in a weird way make this kind of crazy story feel so much more real. So in the audience, all of the things that are happening, you're like, that's why you do go to the edge of your seat. Like, wait, that's really the games. That's Kevin, So
there's a post-game interview where he references like a rock
or
something. Was that a real?
No, that was scripted.
Okay, gotcha. I was like, did he really say that? And you guys found a way. And look, honestly, the fact that I'm asking you that question is a good sign.
No, that was a fun challenge to constantly figure out ways to kind of dip in and out of reality, which is what makes the movie feel extra tense and thrilling, because it feels so real that you don't know really what. Yeah,
that's what I was just kind of talking about. It's so weird how that happens. It's like a weird alchemy. You know?
Well, obviously, I know the film isn't based on a true story, but you guys had a little bit of experience because your dad worked in the Diamond District.
Correct. Yeah.
Is there a guy who's going to watch this movie and halfway through go, "That's me"?
You know what? What's funny is that. I spent 8 years embedded in doing research in the Diamond District, kind of working with certain people and observing intimately. So, and I think what ends up happening is in any field of business, you have a certain type of an archetype that, and then and enough details, if you get them to kind of poke through, then people start to be like, that's me, I feel that way, that is my guy. Or a lot of people know a guy like Howard, which is,
that's the biggest thing.
Find someone be like, my uncle was like this, or my dad was like that, and it's kind of like, at the same time I'm like, oh man, I love your uncle or your dad, but at the same time I'm like, oh, I'm sorry.
Hopefully you don't see too much. So okay, let me ask you. Not too far from here, we have what we call Jewelers Row in Chicago.
Sure.
Is there a Howard here in Chicago? If I start going,
probably.
Even on the show like what's that show?
Hardcore Pawn. That's in Detroit. That's like that guy's a Howard. It's funny because our father worked for somebody named Howard, and he's not Howard, but he is a Howard. And his name was Howard, but it was like there's just that guy. That strength, that kind of charisma that exists in a lot of places. So.
Like where you just want to strangle him and be like, dude, what are you doing? This movie is such an amazing marriage between such incredible writing and Adam Sandler's amazing performance. does writing make a performance better, or does a performance take the writing and escalate it?
Hopefully it's both. Hopefully it's a symbiotic relationship, because someone like Sandler, he can, first of all, he's unbelievable. From all, we grew up on his comedy records. His those early masterpieces are just American treasures, from Billy Madison all through
I'm
Zohan.
glad you call them masterpieces.
Yeah.
But I also agree that they're
They are.
Yeah.
They're the only movies that A, he can make work, and B, they're American. They're part of the lexicon of America, and he's a treasure. He really is. So, and we were lucky to follow his comedy special, 100% Fresh, because he did 50 nights at 3.5 hours of material every night. And our script was over 160 pages long. I mean, it's a shorter movie, but it was a lot of dialogue that he's supposed to say very quickly. And he just had the ability to take this kind of, Rodney Dangerfield style character and turn him into a real life person. So, and not avoid the exposition in some of the dialogue, but also infuse a comedy into it.
Yeah,
so
and
he's a rarity.
And stand-up comedians, it's like if somebody gets up and it sounds like they're just kind of reciting, it doesn't work. But the best kind of figure out a way to make it feel like, oh, I'm just up here saying all this stuff.
Right.
Like, we're just having a great time, and that's the key.
Because there are some scripts where it's like, okay, that's a great script. I recognize that's a great script, but I hear the script.
Yes.
And something like this, it almost felt like documentary. Like,
I know that's the tough. It's tough because it's like, this is, we spent, again, over 10 years trying to make it, and there was over 160 drafts of the script. So you spend so much time trying to write the way someone naturally speaks, to the point where you want it to feel like there is no script at all.
Yeah, and
then you are just watching life unfold.
Well, and then that's part of what we want to do on set is create this environment for a freedom to allow you to kind of erase the edges a little bit and just have it feel like, oh my God, that's real,
Well, to your point, so I'm curious about whenever you're shooting with Adam Sandler in the streets of New York, and he's just screaming at particular characters that he's screaming at. Is your crew big enough so that people walking around New York recognize, oh, that's Adam Sandler making a movie? Or were there ever moments where someone was like, oh my God, Adam Sandler's...
There were total, we kept the streets open. People were allowed to walk in and out of the shots.
How do you not have people looking at the camera?
We do, but
what you do is you plant certain extras. You have hired extras who surround the scene, who are just pretending to not be extras, and they're also directed to, hey, if you see somebody who's ogling, you go up to them and just ask them where the closest subway is.
And it's
so that it doesn't, you don't see that on camera.
It's a persona. When we're on the street, we're not stopping everybody saying oh, hey, this is a movie. It's it's clear there's a movie, but we're just doing our thing. Just pass on through. Yeah. And there were times where we had the camera far away, and there's a fight that him and the Julia character have, and somebody's just standing on the corner oh my God, this is an intense public fight that I'm witnessing.
Adam Sandler's had
but they were like this is just a guy.
That's a testament to Sandler's performance, is that when there was no camera, if certain shots being somewhere where the camera was removed. Yeah.
Oh, they were just that's a Howard.
They just don't see Sandler. Yeah. Because you don't see Sandler this way often, and he's so awesome and real and present, and he's and the situation is kind of I shouldn't be looking at this.
And you know what I mean? It's Adam said something interesting where it's the way we were shooting was with a lot of long lenses, the camera in interesting positions. He's I never knew when it was my close up. So I was just going to have to be on all the time.
Because otherwise actors probably act too.
Yeah.
You guys do something really interesting that I think Quentin Tarantino has made a career out of doing, which is changing an audience's perception of what an actor can do. Obviously, you did it with Robert Pattinson in Good Time, and I think you're doing it with Adam Sandler here. Are you guys just looking at actors differently than other directors are? I mean, what are you seeing in these guys?
I think we're you don't meet an actor and think about the movies they've done. Obviously, with someone like Sandler, it was tough because we literally grew up on these movies, on his movies. But you meet somebody and try to see them for who they are, and then you try to build that out in other way. That just comes from our, we made a documentary about a basketball player, Landon Cook. We've worked with a lot of non-professionals, first-time actors, so we're used to kind of meeting people for who they are and then building it out.
Yeah, you try and capture exactly the essence of their personality, what made them a star in the first place,
Right. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, Jonah Hill was attached to the role for a brief period of time because Adam Sandler turned it down and then came back.
Yes.
How would this movie have been different if you guys had gone through with it with Jonah Hill?
Well, Jonah was interesting because we started off trying to get Sandler. Then he said no. At one point, we wrote aged the character up. We were with Harvey Keitel.
Really?
Yeah. Then we kind of were like, this isn't working. We don't really want to make that aged version of Howard. Then we went back to the version written for Sandler. We went down the road he never attached himself, but we went down the road with him for a while with Sacha Baron Cohen. Then when Scorsese attached himself onto the project, that really lifted the profile of the movie. That's when Jonah said, hey guys, let's collaborate. I love your movies. And I thought, it'd be great. Let's work with one of our peers, a contemporary. He's a fantastic actor and he can do anything. But then we had a really hard time aging the character down because a big part of this movie is the fact that he's like a dad. You know what I mean? And like a dad not only to his kids, but a dad to his employees and
it's like a dad. Like his kids had to were a certain age. That was important. If you made them too young, it would be strange.
And then as fate has it, Jonah made his film and got really wrapped up in directing and making his movie, so we had lost him. And then
so it was mid-90s that kept him from
basically mid-90s, and then his post process kept it. And then we were back. We were like, okay, let's try one more shot at Sandler. And we just happened to have had Good Time at Cannes at the same time he had a movie there, so that's the stars aligned finally.
Well, you mentioned Martin Scorsese, and the title producer, I always find intriguing because I never really know. Is it sort of an honorary thing? Were they actually involved? Were they there? Did he come out to the set, or how much was he involved?
Scorsese was also making Irishman at the same time. We actually went out to the set of Irishman and got to see some of that, which was
at all part of the Keitel process?
No. That was a
total separate.
But Emma Koskoff and Marty Scorsese saw a smaller movie that we made, the same one that Pattinson saw, and they attached themselves to this movie. And they basically let us know, we'll read your scripts, and then we'll come in, and Marty would come in the editing process, and he'll watch and edit. But he was so wrapped up in Irishman, rightfully so, grand, piece that he's making. And he's an executive producer. Our producers on the movie, we have Scott Rudin's a producer who, is arguably one of the greatest living producers in Hollywood, and he had, you just look at his resume and you're like, oh, he did No Country for Old Men, oh, he did There Will Be Blood, and you're just, and he
was that the same year?
That was the same year. Think about that. Yeah, and then I actually saw Ethan Coen on the street recently, and I never met him before. I just fanned out on him, and I said, hey, I'm a Jewish brother too, and I make movies, and then
and here's another connection.
And I'm going to meet Scott Rudin right now, and he's like, "Oh, Scott's great, huh?" And I said, "Yeah." So Scott Rudin, when he got involved, he really pushed us on the script really hard. 3 years ago, he got involved. So,
talking about the idea of showing us a different side of actors that we haven't seen. You guys were obviously great with Pattinson and Sandler. Is there another actor out there that you maybe don't even know what the project is, but you just sort of look at him and go like, I can get something different out of him?
It's tough because you have to start thinking about actors you love, and then and the other thing is that like the short answer is yes and no. I can't name one, but the reality is that's like where you just meet somebody and you're like, oh, you got stuck doing something that's actually not even who you are, and that was what happened with us with Pattinson and with Rob, and the experience of making Good Time with him was great for all of us.
Yeah.
Now he's doing Batman.
Which I think he's going to be great.
Yeah, I think
honestly,
so.
Good Time is what made me think, oh, he's going to be a great Batman.
That's awesome. Yeah,
That's cool.
I saw that the director of Batman tweeted out a GIF of Rob in Good Time when they announced
that. Well, there you go. That's
that was pretty crazy.
This might sound. I'd love to see you guys work with Tom Hanks.
Amazing. We met him recently, very fleetingly shook his hand. He is in a great movie called Punchline.
Yeah.
You've seen Punchline,
that
was a stand-up comedy movie. Yeah. So that I think
80s stuff, man.
Yeah.
Oh, man, and he was fantastic in Captain Phillips. I can't wait to see him as Mr. Rogers. So,
he's great. He's great in that.
Yeah,
and
cool.
as we wrap up, I was talking about the physical effect this movie had. Like, I don't often talk about physical effects that movies had, and that it had on the audience last night. Are you guys too close? If you sat down in the theater...
Oh, I love it. I love watching...
Does it have an effect on you? You're not too close?
Well, it's like there is the element of like maybe the anxiety I don't feel as much because I see the steps.
Well, you know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I know that. Well, I know what's going to happen, but it's more like I know exactly the steps that we took to get there.
Yeah.
So, but I still do love losing myself in it because
seeing it with an audience.
Yes,
is
that's
really
what's
cool.
key.
You guys have a favorite audience, like something that someone did or something?
Well, last night in Chicago here was at the end of the movie when the first credits started to scroll.
Right when there's like a heavy blast of like music that comes
and then you just heard like a collective like 7 or 8 or 9 like exhales and someone said, "Jesus Christ."
Yes.
Which is, like, just put,
It was
can you put that on the
amazing.
poster?
Yeah.
And I was just, that to me is because, you know, the New York Film Festival screen, and also last night as well, you heard a lot of people laughing right at the climax, which is great to hear because it shows you that the humor is still right there, and someone like Howard, our main character, he can have you involved in this crazy thriller, but you're laughing all the way to the end. And that's really, really special.
There was an amazing moment for me. It was like somebody's like, "Oh my God, the last 15 minutes were so incredible." I was like, "Oh, when did it start?" And they named something 45 minutes before, and I was like, "Oh, that's amazing." You know,
Well, it was funny because whenever a certain beat at the ending happens, my first thought was like, "Oh, wait, like we still probably have like 30 minutes."
Yeah,
left.
exactly.
Like, what's going to happen? And then the movie was like, I just didn't realize. And what it's like. Well, it's 2:10 or something like that.
Yeah.
Like like that. It's the fastest the movie has flown by in a very long
thank
time.
you. Yeah.
Guys,
Awesome.
Really, I wanted to come out and do this interview because I'm such a big fan.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Awesome.
I've talked with you
Yeah,
many,
for sure.
many times. Really,
Thank you for
it's
having
an
us.
honor.
Cool.
No, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.